welcome to Terrifying Enlightenment episode 4. Hi guys.
Hi.
Hiya.
Greetings.
Hello everyone.
So we have a new member of the cast this week. This room is getting more and more full every week. Eventually we won't be able to move in here, but we have Sharon is back, the beautiful Sharon. We have Sean,
Hiya.
our philosopher. We have Christo, our man of many talents. And we have Alex, our medical, almost fully doctor medical student.
Oh, it's good to be here.
Same here. I'm delighted to be back. So what I was going to ask you guys, again, quick intros. I will start with Sean.
I'm Sean. I study philosophy at UCD and I've meditated for 4 or 5 years, and I'm interested in Pseudo Zen Buddhism. There we go.
Christo.
Hello, I'm Christo. I am a personal developer, much like the property developers, except I just develop myself and hopefully set a good example so others can develop themselves too. And I'll leave it at that.
Cool. Alex.
I'm a third-year med student at UCD. I met Mark through a philosophy course, and ever since then he's been sending me things to read, and been getting more and more into it ever since. It's different, but I like it.
Speaking of different, tell us a little bit about your background, Alex, like your parents and where you grew up. And
So my father's Turkish, but he grew up in London, and my mother's Danish. They met in South America when my mother lived in Colombia and my father lived in Curacao. They got married and then moved to Venezuela, where I was born, and then I grew up in New Orleans. Yeah, so and then I moved here. Wow. Then I moved here nearly 4 years ago. It's
wow.
It was from all over the place. Yeah.
Where have you lived then? Like,
I lived in Venezuela until I was 3, and then I moved to New Orleans. I've been to Denmark many times. My grandmother lives in Istanbul. I go there a lot, but with the way things are now, it's not a place to go. Yeah.
And can you speak lots of different languages?
No, languages are not my thing.
Spanish?
Oh no, I'm shit at all languages. No,
Oh.
it's terrifying.
So you just constantly would be correcting us when we're bringing out different terminology. I thought you'd be like, actually, Mark, that means... No, maybe not. So, we have... we don't really have any plan this week, so I'm just going to let this roll. Christo, what have you been up to?
What have I been up to? I have just been looking after myself, looking after my health, reading, learning, studying. I've been kind of focusing, because there's another side to me that you don't really know.
The dark side.
The dark side. The dark side.
You dress up in drag.
Yeah, I actually dress up in drag every Friday. Come down to see me, I'm in the George.
Christina.
Yeah, Christina. Or Christelle some nights. Melons. That's what I use. Anyway, no. No, I've spent the last few days actually, because I have a sort of a blockchain technology personality as well.
Mm.
I'm very much interested in things like Bitcoin and all of these new emerging technologies that are coming out of the blocks.
Mm-hmm.
So I've kind of been in that sphere for the past few days because I was out of the loop for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just kind of going back in there. And I had a call with a CEO of an app, a really cool app that teaches people about blockchain technology and cryptocurrency. And we had a very interesting conversation, very interesting guy, studied chemical engineering and taught himself programming and development on the weekends while working as a chemical engineer.
Just, if you're going to create a cryptocurrency, please don't give it a bad name, because stuff like Kanye coins and stuff like that, just the worst idea.
I know.
How do these people think they're going to make any money by calling their coins Kanye coins,
Right?
Or peanut butter coins,
Yeah,
or whatever else they
it's
decide
ridiculous.
to call them?
I know. Now, the coolest name I think is the Ethereum. That's the cool name.
That's cool.
That's a cool name. But yeah, so that's what I've really been doing apart from exercising and this, that, the other. I got a job, so I'm starting a job on Wednesday, so tomorrow. So
What's the job?
just a regular old sales job. That's what I have experience in. So sales in Harvey Norman. But I've also
Nice. You get amazing discounts there.
I'll get amazing discounts, so I can get cool mics and cool.
When I buy my house
Yeah.
soon,
Okay.
you can get me discount from my firm.
Yeah. Cool. Sounds good. Come up to Tala.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I've been doing really. Oh, and I should probably share as well, something that I do regularly every week is I microdose with magic mushrooms. So, disclaimer, we don't condone the uses of anything illegal in this country.
You
But
sound so convincing, Christo.
yeah, I do, don't I?
You saw his face.
But anyway, if I microdose with magic mushrooms 4 days a week. A microdose is about 1/10 to 2/10 of a gram, and there's been great both anecdotal stories as well as actual studies to show that it's quite good for brain development and neurogenesis, and also creative thinking. So 4 days a week, do that, lift your mood a bit, get you thinking outside of the box. And I like to exercise when I'm on it, or go to the sauna, do meditation. It's not really noticeable as much as a trip, you know. And I think it's safer. And I think that last week we said that because I always have that bit where I'll just stick in and I'll say, well, it should be legalized and regulated, right? And you said, well, I don't agree it should be blanket legalized. And to a degree, I agree, and I think medicinally it should be legalized. But can we buy Panadol over the counter? We can. Do one box only.
One box at a time.
But then, right, we can go to another store and we can buy another Panadol box, can't we?
Yeah.
Now, as human beings, we all have responsibilities and we have accountability. On the box it says, do not exceed this amount. It would be the same with, let's say, if you were to buy microdoses of magic mushrooms that give you better brain development and creative thinking, that could be a worthy supplement to help students and anyone really. So why not on the box say, well, don't exceed this amount or you'll trip your balls off, you know? And you know, I think we've gotten to a point now, I feel, in time where we should all be responsible enough to know not to do it that way and to moderate. And you're always going to have people that abuse things. There's people out there that will buy those Panadols, that will go around collecting Panadols to get high off Panadol. You know, you can't get rid of that. But for the majority of society, I think we're pretty responsible. Yeah. Are we not?
This is where I think I have to bring in Alex and get him to tell us about his experience. Now, he hasn't taken any magic mushrooms, but he did tell me earlier on about a very interesting experience he did have. So go ahead,
Yeah,
Alex.
sure. So I was 16 years old.
First, bad.
I was in high school. I was 16 years old, and I had some questionable friends at the time, who were into questionable things, and they spent the majority of the summer before my third year in high school hanging out in this abandoned Masonic temple. You know, it had like skulls on the wall. There was an old pool table, and inside it was covered in dust. And like, yeah, we go here all the time. You know, it's on the top floor of this old abandoned building.
Sounds like the start of a B movie.
Let's go here. You know, let's hang out there. And I was like, okay, you know, what are you guys gonna do? And it's like, you know, why don't we take some LSD and go hang out in this building? And I was like, you know what? Why the hell not? Let's see what happens. So we go into this building, we hang out, and my aunt, this I don't know why, but she had gotten this giant like a tub of gingerbread cookies. So I decided, you know, we may get hungry, so I just bring along this giant tub of gingerbread
you're
cookies.
So thoughtful.
I know, and I was like, we might get hungry during this. You never know what's gonna happen. So then we're in there, we're eating gingerbread cookies, we're all just hanging out, having a laugh, and just this security guard pops in. It'd been like 4 hours, so we're all kind of like, what the fuck are we gonna do? So we just charge in opposite directions and just ditch this building. And, you know, we're just walking down the street, and my friend looks at me and goes, he's had some run-ins with the law, and he's like, we should swap clothes because the cops send descriptions based upon what you're wearing. I was like, this sounds like a great idea, because of course, like, you know, what else are you gonna think when you're all fucked up?
So basically, if they said we're looking for a guy with a blue shirt and blonde hair, that if you swap with a black-haired guy, then obviously it doesn't fit the description.
Right, like, you know, if you're walking down the street and they say this guy's walking around with like a red backpack or whatever, you know, just, you know, tuck your backpack underneath somewhere. They're not just gonna pick up two random people who kind of fit the description. They're gonna look for the description.
Okay.
So we just get walking down the street, and then he turns to me a few minutes later and goes, a better idea, let's just not wear shirts. So we're like, okay, this seems like a logical idea. So I'm walking around in trainers and togs and sunglasses.
What time of day is this?
It's like middle of the day.
Okay.
It's like 1 in the afternoon. And
Perfect time.
it was It seemed right at the time. It just, everything felt so good. Except for the adrenaline. Like, you just have this pounding in your head, like, what the fuck's gonna happen? What's gonna happen? What's gonna happen? What's gonna happen? So we're just walking down the street, and we just hide in this old lady's yard. And there are all these cops just swarming around, and she just gives us up. And she goes, they're over there, and I'm like, oh shit. So we all end up in just a room by ourselves, each person in a different room. I wear glasses, by the way, so I'm there in prescription sunglasses and just swim shorts and Nikes, and they look at me and they're like, who the fuck is this kid? They just like, who does this kid think he is, just wearing sunglasses at in the middle of the day, and And I just start pacing in this room for a good 7 hours.
Which room are you in now?
This was in the cell, whatever. You're in individual rooms,
okay.
And I just pace around and just keep pacing. And hours went by because when I left, it was like 11 o'clock at night. We got picked up around 2, so in the afternoon. And it's 11 o'clock at night, and I just paced for God knows how many hours, just thinking about all sorts of random shit, and just apparently I was just repeating things to myself over and over and over again. I don't know what it was. It's been years now, but just walking around, just like, what's going on? Just thinking to myself. And then I went home. And
did you have any visuals during these periods?
Nothing at all. It was just I was just in such sheer terror the whole time. I was just kind of shaking, just like, what the fuck's gonna happen? Oh my God! Like, did I do anything wrong? What's going on? Why am I here?
How did your parents handle all this?
My father didn't talk to me for a while, a good 4 months, and my mother was like, "You just should have done this at home. We could have had a conversation about this. Like, there was no need for this. Like, this was just bad decision making on your part." And we find out later it was actually 25I or 25C, whatever it is. It wasn't actually LSD.
I was thinking you would have
it was the
definitely got some
off-brand.
visuals.
It was the off-brand kind of. It was printed on tiny little copies of the Declaration of Independence. And
wow.
and that was the start of an interesting high school year.
So,
I went to school that Monday, not to cut you off, but I went to school that Monday and everyone knew. Just everyone was like, all 6 of you, you just you done fucked up.
But
And
didn't everyone think you were cool?
some people were like, nice, and other people were like, dude, why'd you do this? Like, this isn't what you do. And I was like,
Just so you know, guys, he's about to become a doctor, so drugs don't ruin your life.
no, they don't. But that was an experience of my life.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
Love that.
Setting, very important.
Yeah.
And obviously, if things were regulated properly, then you would have got what you thought you were actually taking. But yeah.
Did you eat the gingerbread cookies?
We did. We had to leave them behind, though.
I'd say I thought of
I
that
lost
instantly.
most of my gingerbread cookies.
I was devastated
Yeah.
when you had to leave, and I was
I'd-
like, betcha the cookies are there.
Yeah, I know. we got through about a quarter of this giant. I think it was like a 4-liter tin of cookies. It was just this massive thing of gingerbread cookies. I just thought it was a great idea at the time. I was like, you know what? We might want cookies. And I just took the cookies. Yeah.
Sean,
Yes.
how are you?
Good.
Tell me of your life.
I haven't done anything interesting this week. I've just went to uni and studied, and I have an essay due that you have also due on Friday.
How's your essay on whether Abraham was crazy for trying to kill his son, or whether he was speaking to God and was actually enlightened? Which
I'm not doing that one.
Oh, you're doing
You're
the other
doing that
one.
one. I'm doing the presumption of atheism question.
Oh
So,
yeah, that's a good one too.
yeah.
Explain to our listeners.
Oh, it's pretty. His argument's terrible. So there's just this philosopher, Anthony Flew, who says that you should presume atheism, like you should presume innocence in a court. Like, everyone should be presumed innocent, and you have to prove. So you have to provide evidence of God's existence before you can make a decision one way or the other. But he says it has to be reasonable evidence, and it has to be objective and sufficiently reasonable. And I'm like, by whose standard?
Exactly.
And how some people don't have a reasonable concept of God. They could say, I've had an experience of God, and then how can you explain that, or
Especially if someone says the only way you're allowed to justify it is with reason.
yeah. And who are they to say that I have or haven't had this experience, or that this experience isn't important or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
It's not up to you. If I say I believe in something and it happened, then just that's it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to believe. It's
And how's the essay coming along?
I haven't started.
Oh, 2 days. You got this.
Yeah, no, it'll be fine. Last thing on Thursday night, it'll get done. Yeah.
Last thing on Thursday night.
Wow,
Yeah.
Sharon.
It's due Friday. So
Yeah,
early on Friday.
my cramming skills are not good. I tend to it takes me about 2 to 3 hours with an essay just to figure out how I'm going to approach it. So if I try and cram last minute, and I have, even if it's only 1,500 words, it'll take me a full day, if not 2-3 days, just to get my head around it and then make some progress. And I'm so meticulous.
I think that's
saying.
normal. Like for philosophy anyway. Maybe for most essays, I don't know. But you have to like read the thing and read the thing and read the thing and make notes and make notes and make notes. So like I've written 4,000 words, but I haven't started the essay yet. So I still have to start from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to write like 4,000 words to just try and get like an understanding of what, think it all out, like put it all out there, and so it makes some sort of sense before I can start. So.
Yeah, it's a good way of doing it. I was going to play a clip, guys, but I will get Christo to actually. I'm sure Christo knows this. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that you know who Terence McKenna is.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, of course I do. So, the clip is Terence McKenna, Terence McGregor. He takes mushrooms and fights.
Oh my God. We need to make a cartoon.
He's reading from something called the Corpus Hermeticum. But I'm going to get Christo to tell us a little bit about who Terence McKenna is before I play the video.
Terence McKenna, right. Well, he basically, he basically was a lecturer at different universities that used to, his whole thing was lecturing about psychedelics and the possibility of all these different existential ideas and dimensions and stuff like that. I'm not sure what he studied. What did he study?
I have no idea. I honestly don't know much about him. That's why I asked you to do this. Because as much as I know is he's he uses very colourful language.
Yeah.
And he comes up with very, very out there theories as to, like, he came up with the stoned ape theory, which basically says the reason why men evolved to where they are today is because some non-human hominids, I think is that the correct term?
Yeah, and then
basically took some mushrooms and it enlightened them, and then they developed into humans because our brain grew because of that.
Terence is great, but Paul had a good opinion actually, because Paul Stamets was good friends with Terence McKenna, and he says that it's actually not a theory, the stoned ape. It's a hypothesis, because a theory has to have some amount of proven.
Yeah, the theory of evolution is a proven hypothesis, or not proven, highly verified, or however you.
So anyway,
supportable.
I guess we'll go with that.
Yeah, let's go with that.
So yeah, apparently it's more of a hypothesis, and Terence is great. He was a wonderful speaker. The words just flowed perfectly out of him fluidly.
He does have an unfortunate voice, though.
Right? Yeah, that's the thing. But that's what makes him stand out, you know.
Yeah.
He had a very peculiar voice. I'm a big fan of his brother, though.
Yeah, I find his brother is quite straight down the line.
Yeah, he's grounded.
Which makes him more mainstream, and more people who weren't familiar with this kind of topic would be more interested in listening to Dennis.
Yeah.
But Terence was like, he will say whatever the hell is he thinks.
Terence was kooky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why we all
he's very interesting, very entertaining to listen to. But I think I love Dennis's work, because Dennis is a neuropharmacologist, so he actually does really good groundwork for psychedelics and proving that it's it's
Like
a force for good.
Terence tries them.
Terence just takes them, yeah. But Dennis was doing them with him. They were doing it together, and they, the stories that they have, like the
crazy.
Yeah, it's a bit. I don't know.
Have you guys heard of them?
I've heard the name. I've probably watched like clips or something, or
Okay.
but I don't know that much about him.
What about you, Alex?
No, I've never heard of that.
Okay.
No.
Be ready to listen to some Terence McKenna. All right, I'm gonna turn this on now. Put the aux up. Here we go.
Hermetic philosophy is based on what is called the Hermetic corpus. This is a group of books, the most important of which is called the Asclepius. And these books, most of them, were completely lost during the Middle Ages. At the fall of the Roman Empire, copies of these Hermetic manuscripts were systematically destroyed by enthusiastic Christian barbarians. And the Hermetic manuscripts were scattered, and they only survived then in monasteries in Syria and places like that. Well, I want to read you some of this stuff because it's very interesting, and it has a modernity that is astonishing. Here's a little passage on the imagination. If then you do not make yourself equal to God, you cannot apprehend God, for like is known by like. Leap clear of all that is corporeal, and make yourself to a like expanse with that greatness which is beyond all measure. Rise above all time, and become eternal. Then you will apprehend God. Think that for you too nothing is impossible. Deem that you too are immortal, and that you are able to grasp all things in your thought, to know every craft and every science. Find your home in the haunts of every living creature. Make yourself higher than all heights and lower than all depths. Bring together in yourself all opposites of quality, heat and cold, dryness and fluidity. Think that you are everywhere at once, on land, at sea, in heaven. Think that you are not yet begotten, that you are in the womb, that you are young, that you are old, that you have died, that you are in the world beyond the grave. Grasp in your thought all this at once, all times and places, all substances and qualities and magnitudes together. Then you can apprehend God. But if you shut up your soul in your body and abase yourself and say, I know nothing, I can do nothing, I am afraid of earth and sea, I cannot mount to heaven, I know not what I was, nor what I shall be, then what have you to do with God? Would that it were possible for you to grow wings and soar into the air. Poised between earth and heaven, you might see the solid earth, the fluid sea and the streaming rivers, the wandering air, the penetrating fire, the courses of the stars, and the swiftness of the movement with which heaven encompasses all. What happiness were that, my son, to see all these borne along with one impulse, and to behold him who is unmoved, moving in all that moves, and him who is hidden, made manifest through his works. But he who presents all things to us through our senses, and thereby manifests himself through all things and in all things, and especially to those to whom he wills to manifest himself. Begin then, my son Tat, with a prayer to the Lord and Father, who alone is good. Pray that you may find favor with him, and that one ray of him, if only one, may flash into your mind, so that you may have power to grasp in thought that mighty being. For thought alone can see that which is hidden, inasmuch as thought itself is hidden from sight. And if even the thought which is within you is hidden from your sight, how can he, being in himself, be manifest to you through your bodily eyes? But if you have power to see with the eyes of the mind, then, my son, he will manifest himself to you. For the Lord manifests himself ungrudgingly through all the universe, and you can behold God's image with your eyes and lay hold on it with your hands. If you wish to see him, think on the sun, think on the course of the moon, think on the order of the stars. Who is it that maintains that order? The sun is the greatest of the gods in heaven. To him as to their king and overlord, and all the kings of heaven yield place. And yet this mighty God, greater than earth and sea, submits to having smaller stars circling above him. Who is it then, my son, that he always obeys with reverence and awe? Each of these stars too is confined by measured limits, and has an appointed space to range in. Why do not all the stars in heaven run like and equal courses? Who is it that is assigned to each its place, and marked out for each the extent of its course? And so forth. So it's It's a nature-oriented, celebratory. It glories in the exercise of the mind. It is not doctrinal. It is not pietistic. It is magical.
All right. I don't know where to start with that because half of it I didn't even follow. But the parts I did follow, I found extremely interesting. And I will let any one of you people take over first before I start babbling.
What do the guys that have never heard Terence McKenna think?
Yeah, no, like yourself, Mark, I didn't really find it a struggle to follow what he was trying to say. I thought maybe it was a bit too... Like, I think I sort of got some of what he was saying, but a lot of it just sort of went a bit, like, out there.
Yeah.
Like, too out there for me. Like, it was like a God's eye view he was thinking of, and I'm like, you know, I don't know if that's really something you can really have. You can maybe have it for like a few minutes, or I don't know, but like forever, I don't know.
Not forever,
Not forever.
but you'll get there. Alex. Alex is shaking his head.
No, some of it was, I thought it was a little, like, maybe a little transcendentalism
Of course,
in
yeah.
there. But then he'd just take it to these extremes. It's to the point where I just started Googling half the things he was saying. I have like 8 tabs open on my phone of things to look up when I go home. When it's like, you know, the sun is the god of all the gods. And then I went, oh, this is not what I thought it was. And then he, you know, it went different places at different times that I wasn't expecting it to.
So the Hermetic teachings, the Hermetic texts that he was reading from, because that's not a normal Terence McKenna talk, that's him just reading from a book. But the Hermetic texts are if you read the Kabbalion and Hermetic texts, are basically telling us that we exist inside the mind of God. So we're like a thought. So if you can imagine Shakespeare writing a book, right? He might write Hamlet. And so Hamlet, if Hamlet became conscious, Hamlet would think that he is moving around in his world and doing his things. But really, Hamlet is a manifestation of Shakespeare. So they approach the life like that we are inside the mind of a greater being, so to speak, and that if you can step outside of your normal worldview, psychedelics help a lot, but if you can step out of your normal worldview and kind of don't limit yourself as much to your own experiences or what you've been through yourself, then you might get to a higher level. Now, I'm not saying that I've got to a higher level and stayed there, like Sean was saying that he doesn't know if you could get there and stay there for longer than a few minutes. But one of the trips I did have, I was left scared out of my life because of the potential that I have. It basically showed me that you're not this little person that you think you are. You're part of everything, and you're capable of so much more than you actually believe you're capable of. And while this kind of sounds arrogant, but what I'm trying to say is that you almost protect yourself in a little shell of your life, and you're like, oh, I couldn't do this, or I couldn't do that. But when all that gets taken away, you realize that those limitations aren't positive. You're not like being humble going, oh, it's just little old me here. It's basically you going, I can't make a difference in the world. I can't do good things. I can't step out of my own comfort zone to like try and do something better, because I'm not capable of doing that, so I'm happy with my little life. And this is going, stop lying. Think on bigger terms, because you are more capable. You are capable of doing amazing things. Stop. And that's why I like that video. Although towards the ends of it, it's kind of like, what's he talking about? Alex, come on, give us more, man.
That's ooh. Yeah, you have this really down. Let's let you go for it.
Come on, you've been Googling stuff. Tell me some of the things you looked up.
Oh no, I was comparing what he was saying to transcendentalism and reading about, you know, the idea of, you know, people being inherently good and seeing God in the world around you and things like that, and being able to embrace, you know, God wherever you were and things like that. And I was looking that up because it was one of those things they make you read in high school, and you just kind of read and you're like, why am I bothered reading Emerson and things like that. And then when he starts talking, it's a little bit of a different perspective on topics, you know, they're rattling around somewhere in there. and it was just familiar, and it was something that I didn't find completely repulsive when I read it the first time, unlike some other things that I've read. But that's where I am, Mark.
Okay. Christo.
What's the question?
The question is this: what can you at least discuss from that, or what did that inspire in you, or was it not that inspiring to you, or?
It's not that it wasn't inspiring. It's very inspiring, but obviously, I've listened to him a lot, and yeah, I mean, you've covered it brilliantly there, or what you said. I think it's exactly that. He's reminding us that we are the imprint of God. Now, we need to be clear about what we mean by God. We mean all of existence itself, reality, and all of the matter and antimatter in the universe and beyond.
Atheists welcome, by the way, like as
which, yeah,
I'm not talking about a man in the sky here.
Exactly, and that's what we need to be clear about, because a lot of people might listen in and might think that we are getting a bit woo, but we're not. You see, God is a very subjective term, and it's perceived in a manner that is traditional to the religious way of seeing it, unfortunately. But I think the word God means a lot more than that. It just means all of existence and reality and everything. But yeah, I definitely concur with the idea that everything is mental, and by unlocking those mental blockages, like you were saying, you allow yourself to be capable to do anything. That's why most of the most successful people in whatever field, they become that successful because of the fact that they believe in themselves and they believe that they're capable of doing anything. Let's take Elon Musk for example. Would he have done anything if he didn't say I can do that? Would he have done anything if he didn't believe that it was possible when people told him that it wasn't possible? And so, in some sense, he is mirroring the image of that creator. He's creating, because we're all here to create and to serve the world, each other, because all of the best creations are creations that serve people and the planet. And so, yeah, I think that's what Terence is really kind of saying there. And he touched on at the end there, saying that it's all magical. Again, magic and magical again is a subjective term. It's like, what do we mean by magic? Because I mean, alchemy now is chemistry, right? Because of science, they turn alchemy into chemistry. So magic, like, I've always looked at science as magic, in my opinion, but there's too much negative stigma on that word magic.
Well, I was listening to a talk about this earlier today, actually.
Oh, really?
And I said, I mean, alchemy started off when the alchemical changes, they were trying to turn things into gold. They wanted to make gold. And he was saying, we can actually do that now, but it's more expensive. The process is more expensive than the gold is actually worth, so we don't do it. But we wanted to see if we could do it, but we can actually do it. But the main alchemical processes that these people were interested in were their own, as you said, their own growth or change as a person. Yeah. And magic, in his terminology, was there was never a chair, and then you thought up the idea of a chair, and suddenly you fashioned the world. So now that we have chairs, and that's magic. Yeah. Something that wasn't there, even as a thought, became a thought, and then that thought became reality. Magic.
Exactly. No, exactly. Exactly. I see that as magic, personally.
Oh, well, look, we're all on talking through these fluffy speakers, going through radio waves, and we all pretend like we understand these things. Like the internet. What the hell is the internet? Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. And like we can all know how to use things. But even a jumbo jet, the person who makes the different parts of the jumbo jet, nobody knows how to make all of them. Like we've just got a hive mind of humanity creating things all the time, and we don't even know where we came from or where our consciousness comes from. So that's why at the end of the video he did say that this is a I think he said it was no doctrine. There was no doctrine to this. Oh, okay. It was basically God in all things. But again, your idea of God is life. If your idea of God is life, which generally is my kind of way of talking about it, then everything you said is spot on, Christo, as usual.
Aye.
Alex, we've had you on the show. It's your first time on the show, and we've been going down this road straight away, and it's been very interesting. But I want to know about your life, mate. What's it like to be a doctor from Venezuela who travels the world and sails in his spare time, meeting Irish people and living in Ireland?
Oh, I love living here, actually. Honestly, they always say that New Orleans is actually the most northern Caribbean island that never migrated down, because it's on its own wave. Everyone's so relaxed and everyone's friendly. And when I moved here, it was kind of the same thing. Like,
Unless there's a hurricane.
Unless it's hurricane. But, like, you know, you go to New York and they say you're not allowed to make eye contact with people on the subway. Yeah, but you know, you go to New Orleans and you ask someone, you know, oh, you know, where's this street? And you'll end up talking to them about their children and where you should eat dinner tonight and other fun things you should do. It's one of those types of places. New Orleans always have a special place in my heart for that, and that's why I love living here.
Okay.
And, you know, I have some friends who claim they're miserable, you know, living here, and I'm like, why are you miserable? Like, you have such great people around you, you have great things to do. How could you ever be bored?
I think they're just miserable in general, and then
Yeah,
they
just think they're
find a
miserable
reason
people.
to
Yeah,
be.
exactly. They're just miserable people who need a reason to bitch about, you know,
I
life.
think that's
and
what we
things
all
like
do,
that.
though. As in,
Oh, it's sublimation.
I've noticed recently, sorry to interrupt, and we will come straight back to you, but I've noticed that whenever I'll be angry at something, I'll have a reason to be angry at it, and then I'll notice that actually my system's completely out of whack here, and I'm just feeling anger in general, and I'm directing that towards something. And if it wasn't that thing, I'd be directing towards something else. So anyway, back to you.
No, it's a valid point. A lot of people do that kind of sublimation of, you know, general discomfort and turning it into something really specific.
Yeah.
What else do you want to know, Mark? Ask some
Well,
questions. It's a talk show, me. Come on.
Okay. Psychosomatic disorders. We're all about the psyche in here. So sorry, what were you going to say,
I
Sharon?
had a question to ask.
Oh, sure, no.
So, coming from background in medicine, and myself coming from background in the medical field with physio, it took me a while to get on board with this type of psychedelic stuff. I was very much, no, logical, sick, medicine, only way to get better, heal. That was me. You know, doctors, hospitals. But there's all this research coming out that these psychedelics are really powerful in healing. And, like, I mean, I suppose, like you did mention, psychosomatic disorders where people give themselves symptoms through anxiety or through stresses or traumas in the past. And it took me a while to get on board with, no, everything's doctors, everything's medicine. You have to take medicine to get better. Met Mark doesn't take any medicine, he won't even take paracetamol, and I'm just like, what? He's completely changed me. I don't take as many tablets or anything as I used to. I just use food and my body now to do it, and then psychedelics for the mental kind of side of things. So I've literally been flipped, and I'm finding it hard to still work in my field of physiotherapy. So coming from doctors and medical background, how do you feel about all that?
So I have a very interesting medical philosophy, and Mark and I have talked about this a little bit, but so this is a long explanation. It's roundabout to what you think, to what you're getting to. But when you take the history of medicine and the history of doctoring and things like that, and you put it into context, the way we are where we are with medical schools and with being a patient, being a doctor, it's this big time crunch now. And you know, everyone's you're trying to push out doctors as fast as you can, and it's become really cookie cutter. And I think medicine's lost its personal touch a little bit, where you have 5 minutes to meet with someone, figure out what's wrong with them, you take some tests, and you just kind of, you know, okay, this is what you have. And there are a lot of personalized medical treatments that are coming out now, and it's becoming less cookie cutter now. It's becoming super individualistic. And my thing, right, the patient-centered practice and things like that. My thing with psychedelics is that when you look at, you know, neurochemical drug, neurological drugs, whether it's your depressants or your anti-anxiety medication, do they have a function? Yes. Do they work for everyone? No. But we kind of give them to everyone on a very general basis because it fits a little box.
It's generic.
The schizophrenia paper I had to hand in for clinical recently, one of the most interesting things I found is that the people who don't take the anti-schizophrenic or antipsychotic drugs long term, like, to a large degree, do better than the people who don't take them, and that there's I think it is a part of their brain enlarges from from the antipsychotic medication, and that causes problems long term. But anyway, back to you.
I'm doing that in 3 weeks, so
Okay.
don't give anything away.
Okay.
So I know. So when it comes to alternative medicine, you know, I'm never going to tell you that a reflexology map on the bottom of your foot is going to cure your gout. I'm sorry, it's just not going to happen.
You do take Tai Chi, though.
I do take Tai Chi, but I think that it calms my mind.
Mhm.
It makes me feel good about myself. It centers all of my thoughts, and it gives me clarity right in the middle of the week. It's a nice break on Wednesday nights. But medicine is moving more towards the area where people can take alternative medications.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you know, how is that? You know, where is that going to go long term? I don't know.
Oh, look, I'm never going to be the person that's going to be like, oh, you don't need to take your anti-cancer
No.
medication, or you've got Alzheimer's, you should just wish it away, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Medicine has its place,
Definitely has its place.
but I do feel that most of the reasons why people are getting specific chronic disorders stems back to a mental
No, I
problem.
think so. When I was a kid, and even sometimes now, if I get really anxious about something, I'll get this gut-wrenching stomachache.
Mhm.
Like I've been stabbed in the gut, and I won't eat anything sometimes. You know,
Yeah.
it's completely like, you know, I thought I, you know, was actually sick, and it just turns out, you know, after years of actually thinking about it, analyzing it, when does it happen, why does it happen? It's when I'm stressed, when I have a negative thought.
Mhm.
And that happens a lot. Like if I have exams and I feel like I'm not ready, or you know, that little voice in the back of your head that says, you know, something that you don't agree with. You ever have that where, you know, your mind just says something, you go, that's not true.
Every
That's
day.
not who I am.
Mhm.
And you know, I just get this massive stomachache, and it's like I have to prove to myself that I'm not what that little voice says.
Yeah, you're having an argument with that
Yeah,
voice in your head.
I'm
you're
having
like,
an argument
how
with
could you
myself.
think that? You don't really
Right,
think that.
and it's you look at yourself in the mirror and you go, why am I thinking about this? Why am I dwelling on this?
Mhm.
So you know, it gives credence if there's a way to end this, or
think
you know, to
That's
deal
where
with
we bring
it.
in Sharon with his meditation and the purpose of meditation to get rid of that voice in your head that's talking to itself.
I think what you are all saying is right, that like psychosomatic things, like I've had like lower back pain, and then it, like from a young age, and then it seemed to migrate up to my shoulders and my neck, so it's now there. You know, that's a bit weird. Like,
I
what,
would,
how did
as a
it
physio, I
move?
see low back pain in 90% of the population, and a lot of it is due to psychosomatic and biopsychosocial factors, and
Yeah.
you can pick them out really, really easily, and there's nothing wrong.
I think
Yeah.
it's just like tension, like muscle tension. I think.
Yeah, it's
Because you're
stress.
so anxious,
Yeah.
so you keep
Constant
clench
tension, reduced
like your
blood
body.
flow.
Yeah.
Like if you're stressed, you're not breathing as deeply as you should. You're having shallow breathing. Oxygen, carbon dioxide thing is off. Yeah, so I would see a lot of that, and usually there's a predisposing, like there's a traumatic, I suppose, upbringing or something really incidental
Mhm.
that kind of brings it on, and then they're out of work. And
Or even just
Yeah.
the society that, like, society that we live in. I don't think it's very conducive to mental health. I mean, if you're lucky and you have like a good, I don't know, good upbringing or whatever, but I think generally, like with technology and, you know, TV and, you know, we're all sitting in the house on our phones and stuff. I don't think it's very good for your mind.
a lot of people would think, and when it's mentioned to them, and from my own practice, that it's this thing that they go, oh, you're saying it's all in my head.
Mm.
No, this is real for me, they say. And you're like, no, I'm not saying it's not real. It is 100% real. You
Mhm.
have this pain, you have these symptoms, but it's not stemming from anything structural or anything kind of going on with the anatomy and physiology. It's stemming from the mind and how you're managing it, and it's really hard to explain to people. But we have certain protocols that we abide by for back pain due to questionnaires and things. So there's 3 kind of levels. One will get counselling, one will get manual therapy, one will get exercise. So it all depends on what comes in on the day, but I think people are still very against hearing that the cause of their pain or their afflictions or their illnesses can be coming from the mind and the mental state, because they think you're basically assuming that they're crazy, but that's not what you mean. That's not what we mean. We kind of mean, no, look, it is real. It's real. What?
But it is, I mean, it's the normal crazy.
Yes,
It's crazy, but
Yeah.
it's the normal crazy.
but they modern, like most of our society and the people that we're around in population don't see crazy like that.
No.
They think that we're just calling them mad and that they're making it up. But you kind of have to come around and be like, no, it is very real for you.
Very easy way to show people that they're crazy is get them to sit in front of a wall,
Like Sean.
meditate, and try and stop try and stop thinking. Not move. Don't move for half an hour. Stare at the wall. Don't move.
And then
Don't think.
you'll get in touch with your body pain then,
Mhm.
and then you might see that it doesn't stay, that it goes.
Yeah.
If you sit with it long enough
Mhm.
and just let it be, you'll notice that it shifts and it changes, it disappears, and you're like,
Yeah.
okay, it's gone, and then it comes back, and it's gone.
I have a huge history of psychosomatic problems. When I had hit depression in 2015, really bad one, and like, I mean, I think I was like that probably for about a year before it was actually addressed by my family members. I was in constant pain, like, I mean, constant pain, down nerve root pain down my arms, and I was just miserable. I didn't want to get up because I was in so much pain, but I did. I got up and I functioned. But as soon as I kind of got over that depression and kind of got my life back and I was happier again, that pain was gone. And it was about probably 3-4 months after I had come out of it that I noticed, oh my God, I'm not in pain anymore.
And it's
Yeah.
hard because, like, I was told, like, everybody around me, like, was, because I kept complaining about this back pain, and
Mhm.
I had x-rays and stuff, and they were like, there's nothing there.
Mhm.
And then I said, I'm going to get an MRI, and they refused to give me an MRI,
Uh-huh.
so you don't need it.
Yes.
But so in my head, I had the story that
Yeah.
there's something wrong with me. Like,
Yeah.
I diagnosed myself with, like, something called, you might have heard of, ankylosing spondylitis,
Yes, yeah.
which is a severe...
I've also diagnosed myself with that.
You see?
You diagnose yourself with everything.
No, in fairness, I do have a fusion in one of the joints that would
Yeah, so you would actually have good...
link to ankylosing
yeah,
spondylitis, but I didn't
whereas
have
I don't know where I was getting that from, but I was creating this narrative around it,
Yeah.
like, I have something wrong with me,
Mhm.
like, wrong with my back, and I believed it so much,
Mhm.
and everyone around me sort of was like, you could tell that they didn't quite believe me, they kind
Mhm.
of questioned it, and that made me really, really defensive.
Yeah.
So then they were like, okay, we'll not say anything then, and
That's almost worse
It's hard,
because you feel
yeah.
like you're alone in it.
yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much.
And from the mystical point of view, which I always like to come in on, is that the problem is that we make these things personal. So it's not just a pain,
It's
or
my pain.
it's my back pain.
Yeah.
And as you said,
My
you get
anxiety.
defensive over it as well. When
Mhm.
you're like,
Yeah.
it is real. This is my back pain. That is literally creating an ownership of
Yeah.
the pain that you have, not as something that is there at the moment that won't be there
Mhm.
tomorrow or the
Mhm.
next day or in a week. And it's very hard to rid yourself of something that you believe is part
Believe it's
of
yours
you.
or you.
Mm.
I was actually bring up Wim Hof because
Mm.
what you were saying there about the psychosomatic. Well, he is the man, he's one of my heroes. I look up to him. If we were just to explain to those people
Mhm.
that won't accept that, it's all in their head.
Mhm.
Well, not all in their head, but the fact that their head is connected to their body, for
Yes.
God's sake. You know what I mean? We have motor neurons, and there's a whole neural network going through,
Yeah.
from our brain down through our body. So obviously your body is your brain,
Mhm.
So yeah, people need to look into Wim Hof. Whoever's listening now, look into Wim Hof, because you were just saying there that
Yeah.
when people are depressed or they've gone through something traumatic, they've got shallow breathing,
Mhm.
and then that affects the
Everything.
oxygen going to their brain.
Absolutely everything.
And again, yeah, so Wim
And
Hof.
that's only one component of being anxious with the shallow breathing and not taking your normal regular deep breaths and constantly holding yourself in tension. Like, it just has severe knock-on effects to all the body systems.
Have you heard of Wim Hof, guys?
No.
So
Superhuman.
I'll say some stuff, and then I'm sure Christo will cut in. But basically, through cold exposure and deep breathing, he's taken control of his autonomic nervous system and proven it through science. They injected him with some sort of a venom?
Botulinum,
Some
is it?
virus.
A
Yeah,
The
And he
toxin.
basically
toxin.
just
Yeah.
he just tells his body to dump adrenaline and deal with it, and it does. And then they do it to other people, and they can't do that. Basically, he climbed Everest in a pair of shorts. He injured his ankle, I think, on the way, and had to go back down. But he got to the top of Kilimanjaro with just shorts on, nothing else. So basically the cold doesn't bother him. He can stay in a ice tank for hours, where most people would be dead within 20 minutes, half an hour.
He swam under that ice river as well.
Yeah.
Where his eyes
He held his breath
froze.
for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It was so cold that his retinas froze,
Mhm.
and he got lost trying to break the world record of an under ice swim in the Arctic. So he ended up going past the hole he was supposed to get out of, and then had to double back in while blind to get out. So he
And now, like, holding his breath.
yeah, so double the world. Well, he just absolutely annihilated the world record because he almost died. But the interesting thing is he's done all of this to deal with stress and anxiety and to basically get into meditative states.
Mhm.
And I find his method extremely effective, but you can't do it around other people unless you want to be looked at as a weirdo, because you're taking really big, deep, fast breaths. You go but even bigger and deeper than that. But basically, cold shock. So if you jump into ice cold water, first thing you do is you breathe shallow and you start going into shock. So he exposes himself to that so much that his body's fight or flight system is he's just in control of that. He's just like, I am so calm right now, and through the control of his breath. So he's a great example of someone that's just mastered his body. But if you do look it up and do some of his techniques somewhere quiet by yourself, you'll find that you get strange sensations, like you'll get tingles in your hands and feet and things like that much quicker than you do with slow and controlled breathing. I mean, that's all that kind of kundalini, fire breathing and all that kind of stuff.
You can do it in a quiet place, or you can be Mark and do it on like one of our third date maybe around me, and I'm sitting there going,
My man.
seriously?
I did that.
And I'm like, oh my god.
I did it during my brother's communion, and my mum was like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm doing Wim Hof.
Wim Hof? What? Who?
Yeah. She didn't know what was going on. But yeah, he actually, not only did he do all this himself, he's trains people to do this. And he trained an 80-year-old to walk up to the peak of Kilimanjaro in just his shorts. So he's proving that it's not just him. He's not some special case. Anyone can do this. We all can do this. Sean, I'd recommend you try it out, because you have a good discipline with your meditation. It's a bit more extreme, but I find that it can, again, it's like another shortcut. It can give you what sitting down for an hour can give you in a normal meditation in the space of 20 minutes maybe. I've been doing this since to February 2000 what year are we on? 2018? Yeah, I've been, so I'm basically 20 to 21 months I have not been sick. I have not had a cold in 21 months. Why? Because of Wim Hof. Because, well, I believe so anyway.
The American, I don't know what you'd know this, but it's the medicine textbook that they teach people from. What's that called?
There are a lot of them.
Okay, but
What
basically
subject
they
are you
added
looking
it in a chapter just about him, because he is the exception to the rules that they thought were. Just because I'm sure you're there like,
Well, I can give you a bit of a scientific reason as to why he can withstand the cold. He has a higher percentage of brown fat, which is brown adipose tissue in his body, which deals with creating heat in the body, and it burns faster than the normal white fat that we have, so it gets used for energy and heat. But there's studies proven to show that people that do spend more prolonged time in cold, they have naturally higher levels of this brown adipose tissue, brown fat, and that's why they can handle the cold. And that's why you see in Scandinavia and some cold countries and in Russia that they put the kids out into the snow when they're young, because it boosts their immune system. It makes, also, just on a side note, the brown adipose tissue causes faster weight loss as well, because it just and more energy for the brain and everything. Burns quicker. So these people, they grow up and they have a great body that reacts to weight loss quite responsively, quickly. They've got more brain power. You notice that all these cold countries have very intelligent people. There's another thing. So yeah, it's just so many benefits, and your immune system, and on the mystical side of things and the sort of mental health side of things, is it teaches you when you're in an ice bath, or when you're in the sea, because I go swimming in the sea here in the winter, and I'll do the method. When you're in the sea and it's absolutely freezing, so much so that it feels like pins and like needles going into your skin, okay? And you're doing the breathing and you learn to stay calm in a situation like that. What kind of situation is going to stress you out? What kind of situation is going to get to you in real life after you've done that? Because that's what it's training you for. When you're consistent with it, then you're learning to remain calm in a very stressful situation. And I love it. Sorry, he's my hero.
Since I met Mark, he has me doing cold exposure in the sea. So I never, like, if you met me a couple of years ago, I'd be like, would you stop? Cold exposure in the sea, cold showers, and it's to the point where now I actually want to do it because it makes me feel better. Inflammation, soreness, everything. You just feel fantastic after.
I've gone out of an ice bath and I've had effects similar to MDMA. I'm serious. I've used MDMA a few times, guys. I've literally gotten out of an ice bath and I've felt the effects of MDMA. I've started ringing people, telling them I love them, and texting people
It just feels
after.
wonderful.
Yeah.
I suppose, Alex, now you're probably like, are you receptive to all of this, or are you still logical, medical?
No, I think that Tai Chi is a great thing for this. You can't live without balance. And if you can't be receptive to other ideas, you just block other things off.
Yeah.
And you aren't receptive to anything, even if it's something you just totally don't believe in. If you can't at least analyze it, then you're not doing your duty, even as a physician, to look at other things that you come across and to see whether they have merit. So I think it's really interesting. And there's a Danish guy who cured his psoriatic arthritis with freediving. And
wow.
He said that he had super bad psoriatic arthritis to the point where he'd just break out. He couldn't move. He felt like his
really
joints were all over. He said he was in constant pain, and now he's a freediver. I think he's 67 years old or something like that, and he holds his breath for like 10 minutes and he just dives around, and he says that that's how he cured himself. And so I think there's merit in these things.
We had someone recently tell us that they cured their acne because they started smoking.
What?
Yeah.
I wonder.
It's whatever works, guys.
The placebo effect can be strong in some people, eh?
Everybody.
Everyone,
indeed.
Hugely.
Yeah.
That's why anything that we talk about psychedelics, almost everybody will go, that's just what you think is going on. What's really going on is you're hallucinating, and you're coming to all these conclusions that aren't based on anything real, and you're getting placebo effect, and you believe that based on your background and your history, and you're actually full of shit. And then you sit there going, no, but I can't dispute what you're saying either, but no. You know?
Yeah, just point them to the actual studies then, and then say, look at this.
Yeah,
it's
like
real.
you did for me.
But then you have someone like
reviews.
Sam Harris, you know, and Sam Harris is taking them all, and he says you're just overcoming your ego. But I don't think he's being that, not that he's being disingenuous, but I don't think he wants to say what that experience brings on, or maybe he's blocking the rest of it or something.
Well, Sam, he's very much against religion, but he does sort of, to some degree, consider the idea of the unified force and that kind of on a scientific level.
Maybe it's just the biblical. Or
he just doesn't like the Abrahamic style type religions, and anything doctrinal, basically. And I would agree with him there, in to some sense. I'm a big fan of Sam. But no, he's a big fan of psychedelics, and he does to some degree, like I suppose Tesla would have, believe in a unified force of energy, not necessarily some being that is judging you and creating laws or whatever, but
It's weird because I said to you after my last psilocybin trip, because Mark was telling me that it is all about facing your ego, and the bad trips is just what's within you, and it's only you that you're scared of, so don't be too frightened and let go. And I was like, right, grand. But afterwards, like I think a day later or so, I was like, but how do we know that it's definitely our ego that we're facing, and it's not just trying to tell us something else? Because how can we know? He was proving that. And I did say that to Mark, because I was like, right, you know, if people just say, that's what you're facing, it's your ego, I just believe in that.
I think the answer to that is that it is your own personal journey,
Yeah.
and you can't just like play tennis once and think you know everything about tennis and that you're now a tennis player.
Yeah.
You need to do this thing for a long period of time, and unfortunately it's illegal. So you're not going to be able to do it that regularly. And also, because it can be quite scary, you don't want to jump in too quickly either. But personally, because I did take it maybe every 3 weeks for a solid 6 months, I saw a progression of almost levels of understanding as I was going through something. And nonsensical religious texts then can be put in a different perspective. And you realize when, for example, the idea of sin, I suddenly got the idea that what they were actually talking about was that constant state of rumination where and that's why they said we're born into sin, because even if some child was born on a desert island, they would, as they grew up, they would come up for names for things, and they would separate the world, and they wouldn't be seeing this unified field because we're naturally doing it. So I mean, I'm not saying this is right, I'm probably wrong, but you kind of feel like you're being brought on a path towards understanding, and maybe you're gonna get it all wrong and see things wrongly, but I think that what I felt anyway is that with magic mushrooms, if you are getting something wrong, you will feel it, because it will be quite a negative experience. It'll be like, no, monkey, you're wrong. And you're going to be...
No, I wasn't questioning the second trip that I did have. It was bad. It was dark and all. There was skulls, there was death, horribleness everywhere. And yes, I did face it, and I did feel great after for a good few days. And when I summarised it to you when I was coming kind of down off it, it made so much sense to me. And it did kind of show... It kind of manifested my life up to that point, and everything that I've been doing that wasn't working for me. So yeah, I suppose I can actually probably say, yeah, I was actually facing my own ego there, because it did make sense to me, you know?
Well, think of it, let's try and put it into more structural terms if we can, right? So let's try and create like some sort of equation. Let's say A is you, right? Minus B is your ego, equals C. The planet benefits because you see outside of just the individual gain, and you see the... What kind of word would you use to... The mass gain, I suppose? The
universal?
Universal improvement or development. So, yeah, I think we could, based on experiences and what people feel afterwards and studies and stuff like that, I think there's a few studies that have shown that people are more ecologically mindful after using psychedelics.
Yeah, I am actually.
Which, you know, we lose the ego, we become the eco.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think it makes sense. I think there's a lot of pointers showing that it's definitely the ego that's in the way.
Yeah, no, and do you know what? It's not that I don't agree with that or I don't believe it, but I was like, whoa. Just because people are saying it. No one actually knows.
I know.
So again, it was like almost with Mark bringing me the studies on this first before I ever consider it. I'm really like,
That's the whole message of it all, though.
It's just me getting scared of getting it wrong.
But I think that is the message in a deeper sense that you're even thinking of. It's that everything that you're being told, from the little things that you believe, aren't true on the deepest level. So when you're analysing what's happening and trying to understand it, you're never going to get the truth.
No.
The truth is an experience, and then when you analyse the experience, you can kind of point towards it, or you can take parts away and say that's not right, that's not right, that's not right. But you're never going to be able to express what is actually happening and what you're feeling about it is in a way that's going to make sense even to you. It's just going to be grasping at. It's like trying to hold water upside down in your fist. It's just going to come. You're going to have it for a second, and then it's going to be gone. And
No? Any thoughts?
I wanted to ask Sean about something.
Sure.
So you said that the society that we're in is like profoundly sick, or it's very hard to be mentally healthy in the society, which I agree with. So do you want to talk about it more, or what do you think about that? Or
Well, I guess that's probably a bit too strong, to say that society's, sick or whatever. But
I don't think so.
Really?
I think society's gravely sick right now.
So do I.
I don't think we're allowed to show when we are sick.
Yeah.
I think that's more of the issue. We have to repress everything. We have to hold the image of quality on the outside and we suppress ourselves.
Yes.
We're not
That's
allowed to
Instagram
talk.
down to the ground.
Yeah.
I'm so
Yeah.
happy. Look at my life.
But it is.
Exactly.
That's what it is.
I had that recently with work. I was going through a really tough time over the summer, and I had to go into work with game face on
Yeah.
and not let anyone know that I might be stressed or suffering with my mental health
Yeah.
for the sake of my job
We're
and
not
keeping that
allowed
job, and
to-
that's not cool.
We're not
Yeah.
allowed to feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if I did mention it, then people didn't really know how to be around me, you know. And I was like, relax, like.
Sorry to my brother Ted, who hates when I reference Graham Hancock. But Graham Hancock said on one of the Joe Rogan podcasts that he said that if we are not consuming or what was it? If we're not producing or consuming, we're not valued by our society. And that idea has gone so deep in us that we don't value ourselves. That if we're relaxing, we start to feel guilty.
Yeah.
You know, because we're not producing anything, and if we're relaxing, even worse, without actually doing anything, maybe just sitting down looking at the sunset, we're not actually consuming any products, we're not producing anything for society, we're useless. And I think that's why we do find it so hard to sit down with our thoughts and just be.
I had a huge issue with that up until recently, and I needed a lot of work on that. I used to, if I was sitting around on my weekend and just lying there like reading a book or watching TV, I would feel extremely guilty. I'd get really frustrated, and I wouldn't really know how to deal with it because I felt like I had to be doing something, otherwise I was wasting my time, which is completely ridiculous, like absolutely ridiculous now when I look back on it. Because if I want to lie there and relax and watch TV and read a book, that is absolutely not a waste of my time, and I probably needed that. Hence why I ended up in a depression. You know, like I used to struggle with that a lot. I don't anymore. I do as I please now.
Yeah. No, I definitely suffer from that. But I don't know if I call it suffering. But no, definitely when I'm not being productive, I don't like it. But that's just me.
That's what I thought, Christo.
That's everybody.
Yeah, that's everybody.
No, now I'm like, if I'm not productive, I don't care. I'm having fun. I want to do
True.
this.
Then there's times where where I just let go and it's fine.
Yeah.
But I
We're
do.
so future based, and
Yeah.
we're so future based that if we're not heading towards somewhere better, then the moment is not valid. If we're sitting in this room and all of us think this isn't a good value or use of our time in some way, shape, or form, we're all going to feel shit about this, no matter how much of a good time we have. But all of us in some way, shape, or form have thought about this radio show, thought about the benefits, thought about the cons, thought about some other use of our time we could be doing, and then went, either the enjoyment is outweighing it or what it might lead to might outweigh it. But there's very, very few things you do where you're like, I'm doing this for the moment and not for the future. And I can't remember which philosopher talks about it, but he said you have to treat people as ends, not as means. And can't. Thank you, Mr. Philosopher. And that not just people, but life itself, you have to treat as an ends, not a means. And that's, in his view, I think that was the kind of the highest way of living, wasn't it? Maybe not.
I don't know.
I agree, but
It's okay.
I also think that if you can find a passion that does produce beneficial things for other people as well as yourself, you are fulfilling the purpose. I call it the purpose anyway, to be here to serve by producing, not producing the shit that the society wants you to produce, like fucking ass photos and Instagram. But I'm talking about,
We
you
all
know,
love a good ass photo and everything.
we do love an ass photo, I'm not gonna lie, but Mark's girlfriend's giving him the evils now. But I do think if you can find pleasure in learning, that's something you can do productively. Like reading a book, man. Like reading a book or even watching a TV show, you're still learning from watching even a TV show.
Yeah.
As long as it's not the Kardashians or something.
No.
You know.
No.
But yeah.
Like yesterday I felt really bad. I was really tired. I was a bit stressed out after work, and I went home and I had a few things that I had to do, errands, and I was like, no. So what I did was I lay there and binge watched Friends on Netflix, and I laughed a lot.
Exactly.
And I felt better.
And that's and that is productive.
It is, yeah.
Because you're
Good
laughing.
for my mental health.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so like things like that, laughing,
Mhm.
sometimes realizing, okay, now's the time where I need to laugh. I'm
Yeah.
going to watch a TV show. Now's the time where I want to just sit back. That's productive because I'm giving myself a rest.
Mhm.
But now's the time. So, like we said, when you're laying around doing nothing all the time and then you start feeling bad about yourself, that could also be your body telling you, you need to go and move now because
Mhm.
I'm not happy.
I've had that experience.
Do you know what I mean?
Your body gets sore, you get tired, but you can't sleep.
Yeah.
You're just too sedentary.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I can't condone just laying around all the
No,
time
no, no.
either. I don't think that's a good thing.
No.
Like
an hour or two where you need to watch some
yeah,
Friends
yeah,
and then get up and do your
that's
thing.
fine.
Yeah.
You know, but
The Friends cure.
I love it. I love it. It's brilliant.
I think everything depends on the circumstance. I mean, if you're watching Friends to avoid something you should be facing, then that's avoidant behavior.
yeah,
Yes.
If you're watching Friends because you've had a tough day,
Mm-hmm.
you're happy with the work you've done during the day,
Yeah.
and you want to enjoy watching Friends in the
Mhm.
moment because you enjoy watching Friends, then fantastic.
exactly.
Yeah.
But really, it's very dependent on
Yeah.
why you're
Why
doing
you're
it.
doing it.
You know, a lot of the time, I will decide that I need to drive to the other side of town for the food I want because I'm scared of the essay I have to write. And I will come up with a reason.
Mark does stuff like that all the time.
Really?
And I'm onto him. Well, yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Yesterday, I wasn't really avoiding anything. I was just tired and wanted to laugh.
Mhm.
But yeah,
But you can have an appropriate guilt as well. Like if you're
Yes.
somebody who just experiences guilt all the time, then you don't
Mhm.
know whether it's appropriate or not.
I
So-
think that's the person that needs to sit down and do nothing for a long period of time
mm-hmm.
to figure out
probably.
why they feel that guilt.
That's,
Yeah.
yeah, good point.
And I think,
Sit with that guilt.
yeah,
Mm.
I think probably the most
Eat the
productive
guilt.
thing that someone could do in their entire life, productive is the wrong word, the most beneficial thing someone would be to try to do nothing with no stimulation and possibly even fast for a month.
Yeah, 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 we'll do it.
no, I'm just saying, I mean, this is it's the extreme. I think it was Plato who wouldn't allow any, he
That's my
wouldn't take,
cousin.
it's his cousin Plato.
Yeah, sorry. Plato's my cousin.
Plato wouldn't take on any student unless he fasted for 40 days.
Christo and Plato.
I'm pretty sure it was Plato. So he's basically like, if he hasn't fasted 40 days, I don't even want to, he's not even getting in the door.
Interesting.
So it's basically like, you have to be so, you got to use your willpower to do nothing
Mm-hmm.
with no stimulation, because you've got to face yourself. Because you're going to feel guilt, you're going to feel anxious, you're going to be driven by the future, you're going to not want to be in the present moment, you're going to put all your value in becoming a psychologist, a doctor, a computer guy, a philosopher, a physio or whatever, or a singer. And if you don't achieve that, you beat yourself up, because that's where you've put your value. If you can't sit there for a long period of time and go, I don't have to do anything to be okay. I am like, my simple life of being here is my worth, and then anything I decide to do with my time from that point onwards, great, enjoyment, pleasure, helping others, all the rest, fantastic. But until you've got over yourself, like, we're all just fucking fighting the storm, you know, or avoiding the storm, I should say. Now, I don't think that everybody should do a 40-day fast, but I do think that people need to realize that there is, almost every system within their body wants a different thing. Your stomach wants some chocolate right goddamn now. Your bladder needs to pee. Your brain is probably lacking certain nutrients, so they're going to be sending off different other signals. Your partner might be stressed about something, so you're trying to deal with that. There's so many different things that are going on all at once. We're just sensory overloaded, and
Massively.
and to kind of get away from all that and see how you are without all of that, then what all of us will see is that we're crazy, that we're so wrapped up in our relationships with everybody else and the world and the future and possibility and everything else, that if we block all that away, then we realize, shit, I'm actually part of that too. I'm crazy. I can't be okay with myself. So I need to take some time to deal with that before I can actually go back into the other world. But hey, what do I know? I'm crazy. What do you think?
what Christo was talking about going up and getting up and moving sometimes, and not using your sitting down time as a distraction. My roommate decided to combine them. So he bought a bike stand, one of those mountable bike stands.
Right.
Oh,
So he
cool.
combines the exercise and the friends into one event at the same time, and gets off and goes, I feel great now. Am I relaxed?
That's brilliant. Hey, man. Innovative
So
solutions.
now I just have a stationary bike in my living room.
I'm gonna do this.
It's great. I do it myself sometimes now. I'll just put on like a little Doctor Who and just start cycling on the bike, and then I get off. And
I did
I
do
feel
that
good about
before. I
myself.
bought a stationary bike for my bedroom, and I had the TV on while I was exercising. But then I just got annoyed at the stationary bike because it wasn't good. It was very stiff and everything. I was like, can't believe I spent all this money on this, and I got rid of it. But actually, it was very good because I was watching my TV shows while being fit.
Yeah,
it was good.
It gives you best of both worlds there. Yeah.
Because after my friend's binge yesterday, I did get up out of the bed and I was like, oh my god, I feel really stiff. And that wasn't good because then I was feeling bad again. So yeah, I have to be careful.
Yeah, but back to what Mark said, I think it's very important. One of the most important things in life is first you need to learn how to be happy with nothing.
Mm-hmm.
To love yourself and love life with nothing, because there's so much sensory input from the vibrant life of nature that we have all that we need. Obviously we need to feed ourselves sometimes, but fasting is a great practice that both Mark and I love, that again teaches you that no, I don't need to eat now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
Love is a strong word.
love.
Difficult.
Well-
Appreciate.
Appreciate.
What did I say?
Love.
Love for what?
Fasting.
Oh, sorry. I love it.
I love how I feel after the third day. Well, the first 3 days is a goddamn struggle.
Serious
I love it.
Mm.
I don't know. I love a lot of things, even pain.
It's great for strengthening your will.
Mm.
Yeah, I did a lot of intermediate fasting when we were going to the gym.
Mm.
I would wake up and I wouldn't eat anything until I went home for dinner.
I think I told you to do that.
Yeah, you told me to do it. I started doing it. That and the turmeric powder.
Yeah.
And absolutely everything.
Oh, he got you on the
He
turmeric,
got
did
me,
he?
yeah, he
Yeah,
got
what
me.
about
Well, you
broccoli?
look great.
I lost, since January, I lost 13 kilos.
And was that
Yeah.
continuing that? Doing
Continuing
that as
that
well?
over the summer, yeah.
Well, look, if
Yeah,
I only
like-
practice what I preached, huh?
What about the broccoli, Alex?
It's
Oh, I eat a
anti-inflammatory.
lot of broccoli.
He got you. Did he get you into
No,
the broccoli?
I eat broccoli.
Oh, you
but
did that
yeah,
yourself.
I did
Okay.
that myself.
No, yeah, that's one of the things. See, we have a doctor in the house. Is it Fridays or Mondays that you eat the lot of broccoli?
That was Monday. I would just
Kilo?
come home and eat a kilo of broccoli for dinner, and that's all I would eat.
That's a lot of broccoli.
Wow.
How many
Kilo.
heads
That's-
of broccoli is that?
I would just buy the frozen packs from
Okay.
Tesco, and I would eat the whole bag. That's all I would eat. I would wake up in the morning. I would not eat a thing. I'd go home, put a kilo of broccoli on, and then eat it. And that was the only thing I would eat on Monday. Yeah.
Nutritious.
That took willpower.
Yeah.
What was it? Like, what?
I think Sean is in the room thinking,
No
Are
cheese
these
sauce
people?
with that broccoli.
No cheese sauce. Oh, cheese sauce and broccoli.
No, I didn't even put salt on it. It was just broccoli. And that's
Right.
all it was.
Nice.
That was
That's
yeah.
willpower.
I did a 3-day fast, my first one there recently, and I just did
Ah.
it 3 days because I had it set in my head that I was going to do 3 days, and then I just couldn't overcome that. So, but I might as well have went on because the 3 days are the hardest.
breaking the fast is the hardest part, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh my god, I broke the fast really wrong, but I was so proud of myself that I didn't eat for 3 days, wasn't I? And it really made me feel like, oh yeah, I can definitely do this again. So my plan is to do 3 days at least every month.
And it also showed you because after you finished that 3 days, you started to play it down. And I was
Yes, I
like,
did.
well, if you said that 2 years ago, or if anyone out there has never tried to fast, it's difficult to not eat for 3 days. And
Yeah.
after you did it, you were like, I guess it's not that impressive. And I was like, this is how your mind works. That you're not giving yourself the credit for something difficult you've done. Like, you should be like, look at me, woohoo.
The funny
Yeah,
thing
yeah.
was, I was really looking forward to certain foods afterwards, and when I ate them, I was so disappointed. Like, yeah, because I had all these ideas of how lovely pizzas were. Now I didn't start eating pizza straight
Right.
afterwards, but I was like, I can't wait for some salmon and veg, and then I had it that night, and I was like, ugh.
Really?
Yeah,
I was surprised by that too, because it's
Yeah.
delicious when I eat.
Whenever I finish my fast and I eat, I'm so grateful. I'm like,
No,
food, oh my god.
I was really
I'm thankful to be alive.
underwhelmed. I was like, this is nice, but no. I think I'd hyped up how good it was going to be. But like, I didn't get satisfying food for about 3 days afterwards, and just anything I ate, I was just like,
It's
this is all
really
horrible.
interesting.
But what I found was I was almost tasting them for what they actually were. I was like, ugh, you're not actually that good. Like, you know?
What?
And meat and everything, I was kind of like, whoa, no, I don't want this.
That is really interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
I did not expect that.
Yeah, but now I'm just eating everything, so...
Now I feel like an idiot for telling everyone that you'll be so grateful for the food.
Well, no, I was very shocked too, because whenever I've done it and eaten afterwards, I've been like, just slowly eating as well. I just put something and I'm like,
Yeah.
I could smell everything while I was
Celery.
fasting, like, amazingly, but
Kilo
I just was
broccoli.
unimpressed with the taste, but I think that was my fault. I'd built it up too much
That's
for that
interesting.
meal. Yeah. So we'll see next time.
It's like your body says, I don't need this food anymore.
It was
Eat
rejecting
anything.
it almost. It was like,
Yeah.
you're eating this meat and this came from horrible cows being
Yeah,
killed.
yeah.
And I was like,
So
"Ugh."
if you had eaten like a bowl of juicy potatoes or something, would have been better, do you think?
Well, I did. I had some baby potatoes,
And
lots
did
of
you
veg.
not? Did you hate them as well, or
They were all right.
they were all right?
Yeah,
Oh.
I'd preferred them before the fast.
Jesus.
It was strange for me. Yeah, I couldn't get anything nice for 3 days.
What?
Yeah,
I feel so let down.
I was raging. I was raging because he kept harping on about the food after is just amazing, and I was like, and I was really excited, and I was like, and I put so much effort into making my dinner for when I was breaking the fast and everything, and so upset.
Just goes to show that everything is not 100% along the bandwidth.
Yeah.
You know.
I was gonna because Alex, it is your first show, and I hope you
Sure.
come back. But I
Oh,
don't.
yeah.
You're planning to come
Oh,
back?
yeah.
Fantastic.
Anytime
Okay.
you want me.
We're
I'll be
adding.
back. This is
we're-
great.
One more each week. I was gonna ask. I know you're interested in becoming a plastic surgeon,
Yeah.
but you were also talking to me about the. We had a huge conversation in the UCD cafeteria one day about, was it the, it shows how much my memory is so bad, but it was about how the drugs system, I think, within.
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah. That's all. I know
Yeah,
what you're talking about.
okay.
So, you're talking about the how drugs can be sold in America. Yeah. So in the U.S., if Pfizer has a drug, they sell the drug to a middle manager called a pharmacy benefits manager, who then sells it to either the hospital pharmacy or the pharmacy. And essentially what happens is, if you take a pill that was $1 to produce, but Pfizer would normally sell it for $3, they sell it at that full $3 to your benefits manager, but then your benefits manager turns around and then sells it for like $10, but then Pfizer gets some of the money. And it's this system that just hyperinflates the cost of all drugs in the end of the day. It's like the guy who bought the TB medication, and he just decided, to raise the price. It's like 200%.
There's a huge scandal over that.
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
there?
Was
Exactly.
that HIV or T?
I think it was TB. I thought
No,
it was TB.
it was TB. Yeah.
There was HIV as well, though. Do you remember that one?
Possibly.
That was only
There's
recent.
HIV as well.
I remember the TB one because he ended up buying that Wu-Tang album that was like limited edition, and that's how I remember this asshole buys a one-off album with all his TB money.
So people were like, couldn't get their medication.
Yeah, because he just decided to raise the price.
And what does TB do to you? Does it?
Tuberculosis is it's an awful
Awful
disease.
Lungs, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
Does it kill you?
Yeah. Well,
So-
if you have drug-resistant TB, which is becoming more and more prevalent.
Yeah, it's coming back. Isn't
Yeah,
it?
it's really coming back. TB is coming back
Yeah.
as a disease.
Mm-hmm.
And he just decided to raise the price of this medication that was just really effective, and he was being used a lot in Africa and in or less industrialized countries where TB is more prevalent. But no, there's a lot of things in American medicine that I don't like,
don't agree
and that's
with.
why I like plastics more than anything else. Like, I look at all the specialties apart from certain ones, and when people say, let's clarify, when you say plastic surgery, a lot of people think of cosmetic surgery.
Mm-hmm.
But like, for example, in the US, half of the hand surgeons in hospitals are plastic surgeons.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd never think that your hand surgeon learned how to do breast augmentations, but your hand surgeon is also a plastic surgeon. They do burn reconstruction.
I've never heard of a hand surgeon before.
Never heard of a hand surgeon.
No,
Well, how do you think they reattach fingers and things like that when you
just a surgeon.
Oh no, they're
No, there's
it's
general
specialist.
surgery and then there's specialized
there's
surgery.
general surgery, and then there's everyone who's better.
So is there like specializations for every part, like genital surgeons?
No, that's plastic surgery.
That's classic, yeah.
That's
I
plastic
was thinking, if you're going to be a hand surgeon, surely
Actually,
there's a
speaking
dick
of
surgeon.
genitals, I actually need to go to the loo. I'll be right back.
No, that's That's part of plastic surgery. I met a doctor this summer while I was working who he was training, and he wanted his subspecialty to be gender confirmation surgery.
As in, like, gender
Gender
reassignment.
reassignment.
Yes,
Okay.
the name is, or the official
Confirmation.
Confirmation
name. Right,
of your
because
gender.
if,
Okay,
if you affirm what you are as a person, you want to confirm it in your
you don't want to
physical form.
reassign.
Yeah, right. Reassignment, it sounds forced. So
Oh, yeah,
this is
forced.
this is the new word.
It does sound very Nazi-ish, reassignment.
Reassignment, right? Which is why it's confirmation surgery.
Have to
So,
reassign your gender.
so that's what he wanted his subspecialty to be. And we did a lot of other stuff. I did a lot of cancer. We did a lot of skin cancer. We had this. You're not supposed to talk about that, but
You're on
HIPAA
internet
laws.
radio, mate. No one knows. We haven't even said your surname.
Right, we just said where I go to school, what I do, where my parents have everything.
Everyone
It's all
can
a
find
fiction.
out.
It's all a fiction.
Everyone
Right.
can find out. Speaking
We've
of the,
made it all
Speaking
up.
of the pharmaceuticals, though, do you remember there's a new drug for MS called Gilenya, and it's made with cordyceps mushroom, and you can buy these cordyceps mushroom supplements online for cheap enough. Now, obviously, there's more stuff put into it. I don't
Yeah.
know about that,
I
but it's $4,000 a month for this Gilenya,
Yeah,
and it has massive side effects.
There's speaking of expensive medication, when there's a big thing in the US, a lot of people who are on like Lipitor and things like that, when they're on high cholesterol drugs,
Yeah.
there's actually a medication you can buy where you take it like once a month, and
Mhm.
it just completely regulates your body. Obviously you can have dietary things like that.
Is this instead of Lipitor or
instead of
statins,
Lipitor, instead of statins, completely, and you just take it once a month, but it's like $10,000 for your month. Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Lipitor sounds like some sort of a B-movie bad monster guy. Lipitor.
Lipitor. It has a lot of side effects, though. Statins do in general.
Statins do in general, and
Yeah.
and a lot of people you're put on them for life, and
Yeah.
it's this big thing.
They
in
tried
the
to start
US.
me on statins when I was 25.
Yeah, it's weird.
I was like, nah.
It's odd. Like, where is this really coming from? Who
Yeah.
funds the research now? You get into like crazy conspiracy theories. Like,
Yeah.
is this real? Is the research behind this legitimate? Who paid for this?
But
Well,
you're-
like, just looking at research for my philosophy and psychology subjects, research seems to be so biased and problematic. Like, they
So
just
bad.
skew everything, and almost every research paper is
Hey,
dodgy.
You can find a research paper to support almost whatever you want
Yeah.
now.
there was a book called Lost Connections, Johann Hari,
Mm.
who debunked depression and gave the 9 real causes for depression, which were, a lot of them were environmental and true lost connections with family, nature, all this kind of stuff. But he met with so many people that did all this research into depression and antidepressants, and he requested research from the FDA, wasn't it? Was it FDA? That was hidden, that was never published, that was against antidepressants, to actually show that they don't.
Yeah, the SSRIs was just an unproven hypothesis.
Yeah, that the brain was broken and had a chemical imbalance. Fair enough, it might, but that is not the cause of the chemical imbalance or your depression, the cause of these external reasons. But it was all the stuff to keep SSRIs in the treatment for depression was just, no, we won't produce that, but we'll publish this one that shows that they do work to a certain extent. But like, when he went through that book and just kind of, he just destroyed them, really.
He had a lot of detail because he was on them from when he was very young.
Very young.
And he just had to keep upping his dose and upping his dose and upping his dose and
Yeah.
to the point where he was taking a huge amount. And he
nothing else was
he was saying that they do have initial effect,
Yeah,
that's for
they do.
sure, but they don't solve the underlying issue.
Yeah.
And that it's like a band-aid on a gash.
Yeah.
It's like it'll make you feel slightly better for a small period of time, then you got to take more. Like, it's almost like an alcoholic almost. It's like, hey, this drink will make you feel better for a few hours. Hey, it's not that one drink really isn't working anymore. Have 3, Oh, hey.
Right.
Yeah,
have
it's
a bottle of Jack.
They will improve. They will improve the serotonin, of course, which is going to make you feel a little bit better. But it's going to come back if the depression is because of problems in your personal life, like lost connections, for example. It's going to come back, and you can't stop that. So he does recommend antidepressants to get you out of a massive hole, but they aren't going to solve the reason you got your depression in the first place. And all that research was kind of hidden.
There was a psychologist or psychiatrist who came to speak at one of our career nights, and he made a joke saying that as a psychiatrist, he was the only actual doctor in the room, and everyone else was a glorified human veterinarian. And that he was the only person who really treated what it was to be human. And I don't think that is what you were going to. I don't think there's enough attention to mental health.
No.
And or people, as we were saying earlier, that people don't know how to talk about it. So we throw these band-aids on things. And do the treatments work for everyone? No. Do they work for some people outrageously well? Yes. But can you qualify that something's not right because it doesn't work for some people? No. But if it works for a lot of people, yeah. So how do you fix the gap between that?
There's a great documentary called Crazy Wise. Unfortunately, you have to pay for it. I couldn't find a pirated version to watch. But it was basically framing schizophrenia with the mystical experience, and it basically saying that these people that have schizophrenic experiences or the condition of schizophrenia are more open. They're generally more open personality type, and they don't know how to frame or deal with what's going on inside their mind, whereas in more indigenous cultures around the world, those people would be regarded as shaman or potential mystics, and then they would be trained to use their skills, and they'd be actually highly respected in the community. And then now look, obviously it's not a very simple issue to deal with, and anybody out there who's dealt with schizophrenia realizes it's a no joke. If your cousin thinks that he's Napoleon and he's throwing shit at the wall, you can talk about the mystical experience all you want. But
Sean's
Sean looked like he just like imploded there. But there is this thing where we all do talk to ourselves in our head.
Yeah.
And it's such a normal occurrence where I'll be walking outside, and what I could be doing is looking around, sensing the air on my skin, taking in the smells, like basically being present. Now that I don't have to qualify all that in my mind and go, this smells nice, that looks pretty, because again, that's talking. Who am I talking to? I know it looks pretty. I don't need to say in my head, it looks pretty. I don't need to say, oh, what a beautiful sunset. It is a beautiful sunset. I don't need to tell myself that. Why am I talking to myself? Who am I talking to? Who's this person that feels like it needs to vocalize everything? And then it can get worse. Then you can actually disagree with some of the things that come into your head. Like you're walking down and you say something mean about somebody who walks past you, but you don't want to think like that, or you don't want to think of yourself as somebody who thinks that way. So you say to yourself, oh, I don't believe that. That's a horrible thing. God, why do I think like that? And then you're now you've split yourself into someone who talks to themselves, which is crazy already, and now you're arguing with yourself instead of being present and walking down and experiencing the world around you. How many people have driven an hour somewhere and it's just gone like that, and you've been just in your own head the whole way on automatic pilot? It's not a bad thing, it's common, but basically that is what schizophrenia is, but it just gets stronger and stronger and worse and worse and worse. And if you get split personality disorder, it's not schizophrenia, but it's an even bigger condition that's harder to deal with. But basically we're just splitting ourselves up. We're splitting ourselves up constantly, to the point, and it can get really out of hand.
So my aunt, her thing is she loves food. She has a restaurant, and one of the chefs has schizophrenia. And whenever he's not on his medication, this happened while I was home over the summer, usually he's so well controlled on his medication, but he came in one day and he wasn't on his medication. It wasn't actually supposed to work. He just came in and he just ruined all the food. He came in and he looked at the pulled pork, the huge massive thing. He just threw the whole thing on the ground. I was like, it wasn't good. I said, did you taste it? No. Why'd you do that? It just looked awful. And he just started yelling and screaming, and at one point I think he took vinegar and he just poured it all over everything, and he just got really out of there. And then he just kind of sat down and just started crying and just said, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, he believes his thoughts too much.
And then his wife came and picked him up and took him home, but it was so you don't know what to do at that point, because you can't get angry, but at some point you're like, this wasn't very nice. You weren't supposed to be here anyway. Why are you here? And why did you ruin all the food? Yeah, and back to what you were saying about talking to yourself. I read an article about how when you hear your own voice in your head, they took videos of people talking to themselves in their head, and they just watched their no, I forgot.
Adam's larynx?
Yeah, the larynx.
Yeah.
The Adam's apple. I was going for Adam's apple to make it less technical. Move up and down while they're talking to themselves, and the manifestation of voice in their mind is a physical. And the article went on to some.
So no one could hear them talking, but this.
No, but
the
it
larynx is
just
moving.
very little. It wasn't like you were having a full blown conversation.
It was all in.
But they were just sitting there. They were encouraged to just talk to themselves.
Yeah.
They weren't told why. So that was the control for it. They were just told they were just going to be filmed. They couldn't say anything out loud.
But it was in their head.
But they just had to sit there and just have a conversation with themselves for 10 minutes, and it just moved just minimally.
Wow.
Yeah. And the idea was the manifestation of thought in the physical form, of moving, and they were trying to get to the idea that the reason why we think in our own voice is because we have a voice to begin with. It was like a backwards thing. It wasn't like, you think, you speak, it goes out. It was that the reason why we think in words and things like that is because you have the ability to speak, and hearing yourself speak gives you the ability to hear your thoughts in your own
This
head.
was strange. I said to you the other day. Sorry, I got you there. How I wondered, deaf people. Is it deaf people? Yeah. How do they think?
Right.
Do they think in words, sounds?
That's where this guy was going. I think his daughter was born. She couldn't hear a thing.
Yeah.
So she had no concept of voice, and he wanted to know. This was
Yeah.
where his article was coming. I think that's where it was from. But I think he also wanted to know how dogs think too. He was like, how does an animal make a decision?
Yeah.
It doesn't have the vocalization. It can't
No.
sit here and go, I want to eat something. Let me go nibble on this shoe. Like, it doesn't have that.
This is what people say if you get to, again, that person I've been listening to a lot, Adyashanti, when you get to that level where you defeat your ego to a very high level, your idea of free will is gone. So you're not making the decision to do anything.
Right.
And you are the decisions that you make. You're not making them, thinking about them, and it's not your thoughts that are generating the action. So the answer to what the dog would be doing from that viewpoint is the dog doesn't need to think. He's not doing any of it. The dog is an expression of life. He is what he is, and it's just a happening, and everything is a happening. And that's what's going on with us, except we have a narrator in our brain that goes, I wonder. And that's the whole will thing of, am I deciding that I don't want to eat this chocolate bar right now? Or am I at the will of the world? It gets to a point where you just tie yourself into a knot of who's doing all of this, know?
That was a big focus in. I was taking neuroscience at the same time that we took our philosophy class this time last year, and a big thing in neuroscience was the idea, you have absolutely no free will. It just doesn't exist. It's all shit. Someone dreamed up this idea. It was probably someone religious trying to justify the idea of a god and the idea of good and evil as like decision processes. That was the take that we got, because their idea was, or the way they presented it was, we were in a tutorial and we were told, try and think of something that no one's ever thought of that doesn't involve anything that you've already learned. And we all kind of looked at him like, how do you do that? We're like, and his example was, you can't say a purple dinosaur. That's sort of something that's not real. Be imaginative, but it can't be something that's defined in terms you already know. And this was his little mind test.
You have to come up with a new language.
You have to come up with either a new language, or you have to come up
words.
with something completely that doesn't exist, but it can't exist from the realm. Or his idea was that you could only think thoughts, or you could only have the idea of something that you've already been presented, and you either adjust who you are, or you disregard what you've been presented with. That was his idea of that. We'll get into the philosophy on that if you will.
No. I know nothing. What was the class you both took last year?
Problems of philosophy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I like that one.
Yeah, it was good.
It was good. I had a great time.
It's nice and easy.
I wrote the whole free will essay on neuroscience because I had my neuro exam the next day.
Nice.
So I just studied for my writing neuroscience.
Did you get an
essays.
A?
I got a B+.
Oh, well done.
Good job.
I think they graded me because I didn't actually reference any of the philosophy we learned. They're like, oh, this was an interesting
thing about
read.
philosophy, though. If you completely ignore everything that they've told you, including all of the recommended reading and everything, if you make a good argument, you can still get a decent grade.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. It was an interesting course. I think this. I'm like, okay, why? I don't know.
But I don't really understand the free will thing. So, like, so you're saying everything's determined?
No. So this is where it gets really complicated, and this is where I'm going to fail at explaining it. So it's saying that you are not your thoughts, right? And generally, we think of ourselves as a. It's very hard to talk about this, as I said, but I think of myself as Mark Malumbi, Irish, grew up here, grew up there, and the way I interact with the world is that's who I am. But everything there is a thought, and like Alex said, if someone said to me, tell me who you are without referring to a thought, I'd be like, I can't do that. Okay, but you're still there, you still exist. So you exist without being able to tell me who you are without thoughts. So you aren't your thoughts, you're something else. Okay? So until you find out what that something else is, you can't use your will, because your will thinks it's something else. So your idea of free will is that you are your thoughts, and that identification with thoughts is free to make decisions. But you're not that. So until you know who you are, you don't have free will. But once you know who you are, which again is the all, the everything, the one consciousness of the world, then you're sitting in your room, I'm not Mark Malumbi from Laois or with this background. These thoughts in my head aren't my own. I can use this as a tool if I stop telling myself who I am. Now, I, again, as life. But this, as I said, look, I'm just going to go in circles here. But basically, the idea of free will isn't an individual free will. It's that you have free will to know who you are, and that's about it.
But if you are like the one, whatever that is, the one like Neo or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. If you are that, you've recognized you're not your mind, you're not your ego, your psychological self, you are the oneness, whatever. Are you then working from free will somehow, or?
I'm going to play a video from it now, if that's
Okay.
all right. Is
Yeah,
that
sure.
okay with everybody?
Yeah,
Okay,
sure.
let's do that. Hopefully it's the right video. The one where he talks about all the things that I badly talked about.
Is this Adyashanti?
It is, as I said to you earlier on, Sean, he, if you listen to Mooji and maybe Krishnamurti and a lot of other teachers, they talk about the day-to-day things that might lead you towards a spiritual awakening, whereas Adyashanti is like spiritual awakening is easy, and almost everybody experiences it. You can easily do it playing sport or just getting into flow state, but how to extend that into something that becomes enlightenment is the interesting phase that he deals with a lot more.
Motivation, it's an energy force, right? It's something that motivates one. This is what I'm calling the personal will. So most human beings are entirely motivated by the personal will. This doesn't mean it's bad, it's just the way it is, right? So most human beings are motivated by, will I succeed? Will I survive? That's the deeper level. Will I be loved? Will I be approved of? Will I get by? Will I be recognized? Am I happy? Is my life meaningful? See, that's the personal will searching for something to grab hold of. Am I significant? Shall we go on? You get the feeling? And the personal will, it's just trying to satisfy it, right? It's trying to basically say yes to all those questions. Yes, I'm successful. Yes, I'm lovable. Yes, my life has meaning. Yes, my life has purpose. Yes, 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 yes. And as long as we live in that state of consciousness, as long as you're there, you might as well satisfy the personal will, because if you don't, it gets very upset. In fact, it can get so upset that it gets extraordinarily suicidal if you don't satisfy its concerns and its demands. Or in our culture, like everybody just gets depressed You know, everybody's been Prozac, right? Why? Well, I would suggest there's a lot of reasons, but this may be one of them. And the glimmer that this to move from this state of consciousness of the personal is not ultimately satisfying. It's not satisfying. Not in the end. And for most people, sadly, they only come to even begin to glimpse that until they have had some success, some achievement. Maybe they've raised their kids, they've gone as far as they can in their careers, they've, you know, the old midlife crisis. That is nothing more than this state of consciousness when it starts to realize, I have achieved about as much as I'm going to. It's a downhill slide from here on out. You know what I mean? Physically, I'm as strong as I'll ever get. I have arisen in the company as probably as far as I will get. I have done about as well with my children as I can possibly do. Their lives as their own. So all the personal will stuff has, you know, usually at that point, I have long ago, you know, left my best looks behind me. Right? And so there's not so much hope, right? Aren't you glad you came tonight? And so, as I've said, you know, at that point, sadly, you know, at least I don't know what women do so much, but, you know, men, you know, they start buying like 57 Chevys and redoing them, or, you know, they redo whatever they were doing in high school or in some other earlier part of life that seemed more satisfactory, right? Only to find out that, you know, once you got your Chevy all lined up and it looks cool and everything, you realize that you're pretty much the only one that cares. And the other guys that are about in the same age group that are doing the same thing, you know, and that runs out. So this is actually a very natural process that even way before we get into any sort of spiritual work, it is happening. The limitations of the personal show themselves up in life, and human beings by and large defend themselves against seeing this with everything they have. Every ounce of blood, sweat, and tears goes into defending themselves against this. And it survives right into the spiritual world. Don't deceive yourself, right? Well, the 57 Chevy didn't do it, and raising the wonderful children and having a wonderful mate, or maybe, you know, failing at all that. But I know when I have the right spiritual experience, it's going to make it all right. It's the personal will, right? Everything will be okay for me when I get to that plateau, when I become like the enlightened ones, when I happens. And although it seems like I'm painting this in a negative light, as far as I'm concerned, this is just a part of human development. It's not wrong. It shouldn't be looked in positive or negative terms, as in right or wrong terms. It's just human development stuff. It's just what happens. But really, when you really have a real glimpse into the truth of your nature, this diminishment of the personal will really, really, really gets cranked up. Unless you really, really, really fight against it. And as I said, most people do. One of the reasons it's so little understood. It's so unexpected. Because in many people's minds, their realization can be seen in their own minds as a point of success. You don't know that you're being set up for the ultimate fall. You don't know that you're being set up so that this game is not about you or me achieving the grand state of enlightenment. Because the grand state of enlightenment is something completely different than anybody could ever imagine. You can't imagine it. You can imagine the personal will's ideal of it, what it hopes it will be. But you can't imagine it as it actually is. And so as this ebbing away happens, if you resist it, it can be quite terrible, quite disorienting. What's happening to my life? What's happening to my motivation? I used to have so much motivation. Where's my passion? Does it ring any bells for anybody? Where's my I used to be a passionate person. I had things that I had ideas that I was passionate about. I had people I was passionate about. I had hobbies that I was passionate about. And it's all just falling apart. And what in the hell is happening? Does this resonate for anybody? Okay, good. And of course, coming up to spiritual realization, I don't mean it as higher or lower, but just as a way of talking, coming up to that point where you realize your true nature, it has lots of pitfalls. Many, 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 many cul-de-sacs they get caught in. You know, basically they're just cul-de-sacs of spiritual entertainment rather than actually seeking the truth. But on the other side of realization, there's actually much more pitfalls, and they're a lot more dangerous. How's that? That sounds fun, doesn't it? Because this ebb can get interpreted, and often does, in the mind in some very negative ways, destructive ways, right? Because the mind can only interpret this diminishment of its passion in a negative way. And so there's many cul-de-sacs and there's many places that one can get stuck that you really, 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 really don't want to get stuck in. There are lots of ways the mind will very negatively interpret what's happening. And that's one of the reasons I'm giving this talk, so maybe the mind won't do that so much. Because this isn't a negative process at all. It's totally natural. It's coming into a new way of being. That new way of being starts with the realization of your true nature. That new way of being really flowers with the diminishment of this personal will.
Yeah, Sean, you were asking me questions as if I know, but I felt like I was getting towards this, and when I realized that I, as Mark, wasn't getting somewhere, what I was actually doing was losing all my illusions. It is quite terrifying, because everything you believed, you didn't realize you have beliefs until they're taken away from you.
But I think, I mean, I don't know where I am in that process, but I think I'm starting to see it. But I see it as like quite a interesting, like, positive thing. I don't see it as scary.
Do you have anything you love?
Like what? Like
anything?
I like tennis.
Okay, sure. that will.
Were you probably thinking of a person?
That will be taken away.
Okay, my interest in tennis will just go.
Yeah, your idea of mother, father, love, death, every idea you have is taken away, and you realize that they're only valid on one level. Everything is taken, and so that's terrifying.
So does that mean you lose like all your interests, all the things you like?
That's
you're just not interested.
That's the initial
anymore.
stage. That's when I turned and ran.
Desire is gone.
That's all your desires are gone, and all your repulsions are gone as well. People always think about the things that they don't want, that they won't have any power over them anymore, but they forget about all the things that they love about their ego, about their ideas and their things they enjoy and the things they want from their life and their idea of a romantic relationship, and there's so many different things that we hold dear that we don't even realize we hold dear, because we don't think they're ideas, we think they're real, because we've lived in this culture our whole lives. And as soon as that you realize that everything isn't true. Nothing is true at all. They're only relatively true on one level, but ultimately it's not the full picture, and everything gets taken from you. And so you have to exist for a period of time before this experience gets deeper, where you're lost. You have no idea how to function, and you have to have faith, because the only way that you are not having faith is if you start thinking again. But man, you're going to start thinking. That's what I did. I was like, I started to lose everything, and then I was like, whoa, this isn't what I thought I was going for.
Maybe it was too quick.
Yeah,
for you.
It was.
And maybe mine's just like so gradual that I'm like, this is fine.
That's why you need to take some mushrooms, Sean.
That's why I told Mark to take a break.
Yes.
Okay.
Sharon was like, you need to stop. And then I fasted for a week and went to Tremor for 4 days, and went to the far end of the beach and sat down and smoked some weed, took some mushrooms together at the same time, saw visions in the clouds, heard the voice in my head in a very, very different way to have ever heard it before. I thought that this was going to be the start of a beautiful journey, but instead, since then, I've been terrified. I've been absolutely terrified, because I've got to let everything go if I want to continue down this path. And if I don't continue down this path, then I'm living a lie. So it's scary.
I don't know. It just sounds too. Sorry, it just sounds too much, too dramatic or something.
Yeah, it does sound very dramatic, but it does feel that way. But I think because I haven't progressed down this path, as I said, I can't tell you that there's I was just overreacting, because I'm not there, so I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm at the end of the day, I'm just a normal dude who doesn't know anything and had to fart because he didn't go to the toilet before the show. Like, I'm not doing anything that all of you wouldn't experience if you didn't go down this path as well, you know. So I just got a bit scared by the process, and maybe as we said, it's all hallucinations. Maybe I'm slightly schizophrenic. Maybe I'm interpreting everything wrong. Maybe all of this is completely not true and I'm imagining it all, but it did not feel that way, and it scared me. Yeah.
But I just wonder, is it too much too fast for you? You know.
Well, it was absolutely it was, but I guess. For me, who's me? Somebody else say something so we can finish up the show. I don't want to finish on this point. Christo, you had a good quote last week. Give us something awesome.
Oh God.
Okay, talk first, then give us something else.
Well, okay.
Before you came in.
I laughed.
You laughed at something before you came in.
Well, I laughed because he said he farted. No, I suppose I've gotten to those stages where it's a bit scary, because you start losing the interest that you thought you always loved, and you're like, well, what do I do now? And I do think that it's definitely not an easy thing to be, you know, quote unquote, enlightened to the extent that you're saying in this society, because we have to make money, we have to do all of these things. I think if we were living out in nature with, you know, just being one with nature, I think it's fine. And that's the sort of conclusion I had to come to. It's like, I can't do this now unless I leave and go join a monastery or I go live in nature. If I'm here now and I'm going to do anything, I need to be here, and I actually probably need my ego, but in a controlled way, to use it in the right way, in a way that doesn't hurt me or hurt anyone else, and produces only good things. So the conclusion I came to, for the moment anyway, because everything is for the moment, everything's temporary. So, but I do have, and again, this is the ego, have this picture of where I want to be. And again, I'm looking too much in the future, but because I could just drop everything now and I could just be that, you know. But I can't, because I've got responsibilities. I have a lot of responsibilities, family, you know, you want to look after them, and, you know.
This is why, again, God, I sound like a fucking arrogant prick, but I'm just trying to relate to these stories. But there is the stories that you have to drop everything. Right?
Yeah.
And that's why it's scary.
No,
it's like, you've got responsibilities, fuck your responsibilities.
Well, this is the thing, and I'm not...
If you want this, fuck your responsibilities.
Yeah.
It really is like that, like everything. Parents,
Yeah.
family, friends, fuck them.
Yeah.
That's the feeling you have.
That's the Buddhist sort of, you know,
And that's why it's so scary.
Yeah, that is, But I just thought about it, and I thought, oh yeah, you have to, but no, I didn't agree in the end. I was like, no, I exist here, or what is I? But I'm here, whatever. So I was raised by these loving people that gave me everything. Give it to them back. So.
And that's
fuck your enlightenment.
Yeah, exactly. That's the moral view. That's our whole course is about this at the moment.
Yeah.
Is there a suspension of the ethical? Is there something that comes higher than the moral? And most people go, no. If you're being immoral, you're being immoral, and that's not good, and that's the way it is. Yeah. Alex, thanks for coming on. Hopefully you'll be here next week.
I'll
Christo,
be here next week.
legend. Wish I could speak as well as you. Sean, love your voice, mate. Want to be hugged by your voice so I can sleep. Yes. Sharon, come in here and say goodbye, and I'll be talking to you for the rest of the night anyway.
You shall. Goodbye. This has been Terrifying Enlightenment.